How close that was, and I'm sorry. We literally just seconds ago got the audio working, so everything's clear? Yeah?
Yeah.
We think?
Yeah.
If not, let us know. I'm sorry. I'm never too speedy first thing in the morning, but I'm particularly not because of my disability. I feel more disabled than even I was last week. I'm sort of battling something viral, I can tell, but I was not going to miss coming back. So here we are in a semblance of shape, and onward, forward we go. Thank you. I've just been able to access some of what you guys have written me and to Susan, and I thank you all so very much. I don't know how much you want to hear any of that, but I just got back from St. Louis last night, and Susan is doing remarkably well. She's one tough woman, not given to sentimentality. Sentimentality is a refuge, you know. It's a refuge, and she's not allowing herself to have it. I will tell you this about her husband, who was, I mean, I know when people die, and people kept saying this after the funeral. You know, you can sit in funerals and you listen to people say things about the deceased, and, you know, their sins are washed away. You think, geez, I never realized he was the most amazing human being in the universe. And, you know, so there's this willingness to look at the positives, which is, you know, why we do that once somebody's gone, and fail to do it to people who are with us still. That's a whole other issue. But what happened at Eric's funeral was so wonderfully, it was almost funny. Everybody who spoke, and almost every letter that Susan has received thus far, the person writing it says quite sincerely, he was my best friend. Now, if you had asked Eric who his best friend was, I'm not sure who would have won, and I'm sure there would have been more than one. He loved people so much. But everybody felt he was there. Truly. He was their best friend. They didn't have a better friend. He was my best friend. And so there was a lot of grief associated with this untimely passing. He was at the height of his professional skill, and skill's not the right word. He was lauded nationally. He was recognized nationally, even internationally, in the realm of psychoanalysis. He was recognized for his work in drama and theater. He was recognized as taking the time to be about 100 people's best friend. Nobody ever felt that when he was talking to you, he was rushing. Or when you were talking to him, he was sort of like looking for an escape. That could never be said of me. And maybe you, I don't know. He was in the present, there, constantly. Very tough. Very, very tough loss. And if he cheated out of seeing his first grandchild, who I think will be born in 3-4 weeks. So, anyway, very tough. Susan probably will be back sooner than you think because she's a survivor and she wants to start living her life. Now, she might be a little full of bravado, I don't know. But if anyone's going to take a good shot at it, she is. So, it's been a rough month for my family. And just for full disclosure, I go see an orthopedic surgeon this afternoon, and I just please send up thoughts that good thoughts that I can dodge having to have any kind of surgical intervention with this damn shoulder. Okay? As I don't wanna. I just don't wanna. So, where are we? I must say, that when your life is hijacked by grief and injury, as mine has in the last few weeks, I am out of it in terms of what's happening in the news, and I'm sorry for that. We have a caller. Hi.
Hi. Did you ever find your cat?
Yes, that's the good news. I thought I said that on Monday. I tweeted it. Oh, I'm sorry. The cat showed up 6 days later. Yeah, right. And I said, I'm going to kill you now. And looked none the worse for wear, and frankly looked very pleased with himself. So yes, he's back.
Do you have a name tag on him?
I will now. I'm sorry I didn't.
Well, we same thing happened to our cat, and we did. We put a collar and a tag on it, and the cat would not let that be on.
Well, see, that's what I'm thinking this one will do. He's never worn one. He's 7 years old. I don't think it'll stay on him either. He does have a chip, so if he's picked up and a shelter or any vet is going to, scan him, and they'll know, then they know how to get him home. Do you know about chips?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, okay.
Well, our thoughts are with you and Susan.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We'll get through it.
Get through it, yes. So,
we
okay.
will. All right.
We'll see you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you. So, anyway. Yeah, the cat. That was the one piece of good news in this miserable month. Okay, so as I was saying, I was mea culpa that I'm not exactly up on news. The good news is Jared Day, I believe, is coming in tomorrow, and he's always up on the news. So I'll get educated right along with you. And Tom Sokolowski is not back until next week, but then we'll have Chris Potter on Friday, as far as I know. So that's where we are. I got to tell you, it's going to be a big day today. I know what the news is going to be later. I'm pretty sure I know. Oh, I shouldn't jinx this. As you may have heard, in the state of Oregon yesterday, a federal judge did find that their whatever constituted their defense of marriage legislation was unconstitutional. And so today is a big wedding day for an awful lot of folks in Oregon. And these states are falling so rapidly. Oregon judges, and that's why you get these odd things where, like, Arkansas is ahead of Pennsylvania in this regard. You don't think of Arkansas for that matter, you don't think of Pennsylvania as a progressive state, but I know in our dreams we like to think we're slightly more progressive, but because of federal judges mostly, and some state judges, I believe. They're just dropping. Arkansas, gays can marry. Idaho, gays can marry. Michigan, Oklahoma, Texas, Utah, Virginia. These are all judicial. Add to that Oregon And here's my big news. I think we're going to add Pennsylvania to that late today. Now, I do not want to jinx it, but it is my understanding that the judge in that case has signaled to parties involved that they should perhaps expect a ruling around 5 p.m., I think, today. Now, I cannot believe that this judge is going to head that away when every other judge went this way. And so I'm just putting a heads up out there. I happen to know that there are some huge rallies and celebrations and parties planned for this evening after that event. So if you want a party in Pittsburgh, the big party sponsored by the ACLU, I think, and maybe a few other folks, is on Ellsworth Avenue in Shadyside. And I think it's the 5800 block.
5801, probably.
5801.
That's a big gay bar.
5801 is where, I forget what it's called. It used to be New York, New York. Yeah.
I think it's just called 5801.
Okay, 5801. But that's a real gay-friendly neck of the woods. That's also the neck of the woods where I broke my shoulder. The next block. So if you want to have some fun tonight, that's where the fun's going to be. But obviously you have to first know that the judge has, in fact, put that ruling out, and it was the correct one. So I'm telling you, all my gay friends, if you're still not married and you sort of want to get married and you were waiting to be able to do it at home, I think you're going to be able to do it anytime you want. Okay. And what else has been happening? Oh, dear. Okay, so I don't know how current I'm going to be, guys, but let me do my best to share some things with you. I did note this in the I was reading the New York Times on the airplane last evening coming back, and they had a front page story about the northeastern states and how the northeastern states are generally thought to be, these are the very progressive states. Yeah, but not really, as we know, because they included us in them. Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, New York, these are the progressive states. But the story was pointing out that it is these states that have never had a woman as an elected governor, as a Democrat. The Democratic Party in each of these states, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, New York, you name them, they are rooted in old-time urban machine politics. Does this sound familiar to us here in Pennsylvania, in Pittsburgh? Yeah. And they have also been hand in glove with the unions, and those good old boy political networks and the unions are not exactly known as bastions of femininity or of even welcome to women on an equal status. Obviously, there's some efforts being made in that regard, but other states all over the country have so far outpaced us in that regard. It's something I've talked about many times, and they note that Allison Schwartz and Catherine McGinty are running in today's primary election, but they also note that neither are likely to secure the nomination, so the same old goes on. A Democratic pollster said that these states, and this sure fits Pennsylvania, She says that they're at core exceedingly conservative states. This is the weird thing that took me a long time to figure out after I moved here. Because I thought of it, labor movement here, and I thought of Pittsburgh, a Democratic, powerhouse city. But it took me a while to understand that these are different kind of Democrats than what I was used to in my once progressive state of Wisconsin. Here's what the Democratic pollster says about Democrats or the Democratic establishment in Pennsylvania. They are older, it is a blue-collar electorate, and a heavy Catholic population. So I'm sorry, you Catholics, you're being blamed for this, too. Catholics, unions, and good old boys. But it isn't funny that women have not been able to crack. And it's weird when you think of a lot of the only place women are allowed in is, nationally is the Senate, really. The U.S. Senate is pretty impressively got some female in there now. There are 16 Democratic women alone in the U.S. Senate. But there is only one woman Democrat governor of a state. One. Out of 50 states, only one woman governor who's a Democrat. There are quite a few Republicans. So that sort of messes with people's perceptions of who's progressive in terms of where are the feminists, who allows women to take the lead, right? Not us and not here. And it still ain't happening. It's still a far cry from happening. And I don't know what the hell. Allison Schwartz, running today in the Democratic primary for governor. I feel like I need to say that, although I don't need to say that to you because you're a politically savvy crowd. But I know I'd have to say it to 90, probably 8% of the population. Allison Schwartz, who is running, is the only female in the entire congressional delegation from this state. There are 22 people supposedly representing Pennsylvania in Washington, D.C. 21 of them have penises. I mean, as far as I know, Allison Schwartz does not have a penis. I believe she does not. There you have it. Unbelievable. And truly a shame. Truly a shame. There's a thought that people are willing to elect a woman to a senatorial position because a senatorial position is one in which there's a sharing of leadership, and it's a collegial kind of a body, and women can handle that well. Where obviously a lot of voters still, just whether they realize they're doing it based on the gender or not, a lot of them can't go to the point where they would let a woman be the executive, the governor. And around these parts, we won't even do senator. We've never had a female senator. I mean, that is so behind the times. Unbelievable. And because of the sort of still old boys holding down the party politics and the machine politics in Pennsylvania, it's not a welcoming environment for a woman coming in at the bottom, willing to work her way up. It's not a welcoming environment. Still, 2014, pretty amazing. I hope you do vote today. I got a record to keep, so I'm going to go in. I'm not particularly feeling like my vote's going to make a damn bit of difference today, but I am going to keep my streak alive. Turnout is expected to be, I believe, if I show up, about 17 people. I exaggerate only slightly. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Okay, so my problem here, too, guys, is I've got so many unread emails here that I'm not sure which has come in. What's the date? It's the 20th today. Okay. I'll try to look at current ones in my efforts to share anything coming in with you. Thank you again all for all your nice thoughts, words, prayers, and your welcome backs. It's nice. Appreciate it. Okay, time to get a break in here. Give me time to get a little more organized. If you've got anything you want to talk about, come on in. As I said, I'm a little bit behind the curve. Working hard to catch up. In a minute.
Email your questions and comments to Lynn at pghcitypaper.com or call Lynn at 412-316-3381. Lynn Cullen Live will return in a moment.
BergBargains.com is your best bet for great deals in the Berg. Log on today for exclusive bargains from your favorite sports bars like the Pittsburgh Grill and Jerome Bettis Grill, plus discounts on tickets to City Theater and PICT. BergBargains.com, Pittsburgh's best bargains. BergBargains.com.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one thing I am so angry about this dang shoulder of mine is this is my fun gardening season. And a one-armed gardener is not real good.
It would be a good short story.
The one-armed gardener? Well, if that's a good short story, you write it. I'm living it. I've looked at my poor yard. It's an embarrassment, and I've said, I'm sorry. I think this year is going to have to be a bust, but I still intend, you dang right I do, to head over to the Urban Gardener, and little by little maybe is what I'll do. Little by little. You know what else I could do? And I think I said this last week, the one day I managed to get in here. They're willing to come out and do stuff for you. So maybe that's what I should do. So that's a possibility, too. Go in there and say, ooh, I like that, and could you come to my house and put them in? So I think maybe that's what we'll do. The Urban Gardener is such a wonder. I felt like I discovered it all by myself many, many years ago, but I'm quite clearly am not the only one now. They have everything you could need, and what's so wonderful is right in the city, right over there on the north side on Brighton Road. Easy to get to, and the two women who run it, man, they are so knowledgeable about everything. They are there. They will talk to you. They will sit and listen to your concerns and worries and really give you good solutions and advice. They have everything a gardener could want: the perennials, the annuals, the vines, the bushes, the trees, the garden art and the accessories. You find some really sort of wonderful things like that there that you don't see everywhere else. And as I said, they'll come in and do design for you at your home. They will also do maintenance if you want. So check them out. I really can't recommend a place more. I love it. 1901 Brighton Road, easy to get to. Look at their website, a host of information there, and that is urbangardenerpgh.Pittsburgh.com. And if you go and if you buy stuff, don't forget to mention Lynn Cullen when you're checking out, because they'll give you a little bit off. They will.
Packers.
Vikings.
We come from different places.
Uptown.
Downtown.
We come to different conclusions.
Half empty.
Half full.
But when we live united, we make a real difference in the building blocks of life. Children succeed in school, families gain financial stability, the health of our neighbors improves, and suddenly so do our communities. Real change won't happen without you.
Live United.
So give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Sign up today at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
You're listening to Lynn Cullen Live at pghcitypaper.com. Once again, here's Lynn Cullen.
Okie doke. Oh, I have to tell you this funny story. So, can't remember exactly when this happened. What day is it? Is it Tuesday? Okay, so maybe Sunday night. Maybe Saturday night is when it happened. So that'll be the day after the funeral. I was sitting out in Susan's backyard with a few people, and in walks one of Eric's long friends. You know, they were kids together. And this guy is a character. I've actually spoken about him before on my show because over the years I've gotten to know Ricky. And he's quite something. And to spend time with Ricky is to always have an adventure. If I ever told the story of going over to this guy's house, now I'm going to blank on the name. It was Ricky who took me there. This was in Hollywood. He lives in California. And this guy, we went up the stairs. I think I've told you this. We went up this big staircase, and then there was this room, a dark kind of a room right to the side with a door open, and then under a spotlight was that horrible doll from Chucky.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Have I told? Yeah, no.
Hey, have you talked about this before?
I have, I think. So I'm just telling you that that's the same guy that I'm about to tell you.
Okay.
That Chucky from the movie.
That's terrible.
And so the guy whose house we were in, that was his movie. And so I can't even remember the name. I can't remember any of it. Except, and I'd never seen that movie, but I got to tell you, that scared the bejeebers out of me. Ricky also is one of those people who knows everybody, so that, Wolfgang Puck was a good friend, and so we could get into Spago, and Wolfgang came and sat with us, and I'm thinking, geez, this is fun, because he always out there, always with the celebs. A true character. Anyway, he comes walking in, and he had a brush with cancer in the last few years, and he's a sick man himself, and can barely eat anything anymore, but it hasn't slowed him down a bit. He is still living large because that's how he lives. He walks into the backyard, big grin on his face, and says, "You will not believe this." And he pulls out of his pocket a wad of cash that was, seriously, it was like this. It was like that. And it was all $100 bills.
Give me some of that.
I know! And we're all like, and knowing him, we figured it was a joke. I mean, a bunch of people jumped up, my son being one of them, and I was like, and turns out Ricky couldn't sleep the night before. He was miserable. He was thinking about Eric. He was thinking about his late wife, who also died of this goddamn cancer, young. And he ran over to a casino. And do you know that money just kept, he won two $8,000, I don't know what, pots? What? I don't understand gambling. He had, at one point, well over $20,000 just in cash. And my mother said, well, why don't they give you a check so that you can, why do they give it to you in cash? He said, well, they give it to you in cash, so you turn around and give it back to them. You can't play with a certified check. So he managed to get out of there with a good $18,000 still intact, and he was walking around with that wad for the next 48 hours, showing anybody who wanted to see it. He said he felt Eric was the angel on his shoulder that night. But and then someone suggested, well, there's an old custom, an old funeral custom that you should note, that if you come into some great fortune immediately after the funeral of a loved one, that you give at least half of that to the widow. And Susan was saying, yes, I know, come to think of it, I do remember that. Right. We were all saying that was absolutely true. Not happening. He brought us some bagels and lox the next morning. Anyway, I'd never seen a wad of cash like that in my life. It's unbelievable. Just ridiculous. Wow. So, I don't know. Guys, I'm babbling. Okay. So there's a big thing today in the paper about how Pittsburgh has placed number 2 behind Boston as the most safe city for pedestrians. Now, see, this is why, if you don't travel a lot or if you don't know, you assume Pittsburgh's bad for pedestrians, right? Do you? I think we always do. All these and then there's all this complaint about jaywalking in Pittsburgh. I, by the way, do not think Pittsburgh is a big jaywalking town. Do you? I don't at all.
I do it all the time.
I do it too, but I don't see others do it. Jess and I do. But I am always amused at how people in Pittsburgh, the majority, will stand, even in cold weather, at obeying the don't walk sign when there's no traffic coming. I mean, my sense, and maybe this is not true, the don't walk sign is to, warn you that there's traffic that has the right of way and you don't at the time. But I mean, you have a set of eyes, and if there's no traffic around, why the hell stand there? If you're freezing or you're getting wet or you have someplace to be. So I always I go if I can see that I can go. I'm not darting in front of anybody, but it astonishes me. The vast majority of people in this town will not do that. So I think of Pittsburgh pedestrians. I don't care what John Schmitz, who wrote this, says, he starts it out with, for a city where pedestrians and drivers seem to regard crosswalks as quaint decorations to be ignored at will. See, I don't think that's true. I mean, there are cities where it is obvious nobody pays any attention to that stuff. But here I think there's I think more people pay attention to the walk and don't walk signs and cross in the right places in Pittsburgh than will vote today. I'll tell you that right now. But we really are way ahead. I mean, pedestrians are getting killed left and right in a lot of other places. The statistics that blew my mind was that in a period, in an 8-year period, ending in 2012, that more people in this country die because they get hit by a car while walking. More people in that period died that way than died in any natural disasters in those 8 years. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, what else? Landslides, whatever. All of those kind of flooding, all of that did not, in an 8-year span, in no way rose to the level of people getting picked off one by one by drivers. The drivers are the villains here, generally speaking. There are more clueless, selfish drivers around than ever, and I really think that pedestrians should beware. So, I'm sorry. All right. Someone, the Benghazi stuff, in as much as that keeps coming up, like a bilious burp from Republicans. They just can't keep it down. Here comes Benghazi again, splat. And you'll hear them say that the head should roll, the president should be impeached, because 4 brave Americans needlessly died there. Okay. I agree, 4 Americans certainly needlessly died there. But there was a letter to the editor by Anthony Cortazzo Jr. from Westmoreland County that I think I cut out of the paper last week sometime, I guess, when I was still here. And he has this marvelous rundown of only people killed at U.S. consulates and embassies when George W. Bush was president, okay? Because these 4 in Benghazi were at the U.S. consulate there, right? George W. Bush's tenure. 5 Americans killed at the U.S. consulate in Calcutta. Maybe that's Calcutta. 12 killed at the U.S. consulate in Karachi, 2002. 2003, 2 killed, U.S. consulate at Karachi. Obviously, they didn't improve the security there. So, June 30th, 2004, 2 killed at the embassy in Tashkent. December 6th, 2004, American compound in Saudi Arabia, 9 Americans killed. March 2nd, 2006, consulate in Karachi, 4 killed. Where was the hue and cry by Republicans about the failure to protect our citizens at the consulate in Karachi? I've now read 3 separate attacks killing Americans in Karachi when George W. Bush was president and Condoleezza Rice was Secretary of State. Looks like they did not protect our brave State Department employees and CIA officers. In Syria, at the embassy in 2006, 4 killed. In Yemen, at the U.S. Embassy, 2 killed. In Istanbul, July of 2008, 6 killed. September, the embassy in Yemen, 16 killed. Okay, you add all that up, the total deaths of Americans at U.S. consulates or embassies when George W. Bush was president, 62 dead. And as this guy puts it, outraged Republicans? 0. Now, why shouldn't something like that just shut these idiots up? Why doesn't something like that shame them into shutting up? I'm gold plating this baby because that's some information. Yeah. Well, I see by the clock on the wall that we've reached our second break. Much to my shock, actually, and let's go there. Okay, be back in a minute.
More is on the way with Lynn Cullen Live.
Hi, I'm LeVar Burton, and I'm proud to be a book person. How do I choose a book? Sometimes it's the cover, sometimes it's the title. I guess I'm pretty visual. If a book's really impressing me and the writing is really good, I will peek and see what the last paragraph is, because the endings of books should rock you. I am a book person, and if you're a book person too, read to a child and spark a lifetime of ambition. Join me at bookpeopleunite.org, because reading is fundamental. A public service announcement brought to you by Reading is Fundamental, Library of Congress, and the Ad Council.
Download the brand new CP Haps app and find out what's going on in Pittsburgh. It's the fun and free app that puts the most popular events at your fingertips. Text events to 77948 to download now and register to win a whitewater rafting adventure for 4 in West Virginia from River Expeditions. The CP Haps app brought to you by Pittsburgh City Paper.
Have a question or an opinion? Call Lynn Cullen at 412-316-3381 or email lynn at pghcitypaper.com. Now, more with Lynn Cullen Live.
Well, I don't know if you saw this, but I've been carrying this around for some weeks, too. Wanting to share it with you, and maybe now you've heard it before, but I just found this story mind-blowing. The Veterans Administration is still sending a check once a month to someone because of service in the Civil War. Now, it's not the person who had served in the Civil War, obviously, but it's his daughter. And she still gets a check from the Department of Veterans Affairs, a pension payment for her father's military service in the Civil War. And that story alone is a fascinating one, but it does, on a more more sobering note, remind us that the costs of war are astronomical, and that in 2014, the American government is still paying for the Civil War. You can bet your bottom dollar that we're still paying for every war since. And obviously on a greater and greater and greater scale. The government's annual tab for surviving family from wars like the Spanish-American War and the Civil War comes to $16.5 million a year. That's ancient history. That's two centuries ago. $16.5 million. The spouses, parents, and children of deceased veterans from World War II and Korea and Vietnam and Kuwait and Afghanistan and Iraq and, what are we forgetting, Grenada and other incursions, just last year were paid almost $7 billion. A Harvard University study last year projected the final bill for the Iraq fiasco and the Afghanistan fiasco will hit $6 trillion in the coming decades. And this is just another reminder that we need to think before we go to war. Just another reminder. Because when Americans, when our government, when the Republicans, when those who seem to just always want to go to war as their first impulse, our media being another, when they start beating those war drums, it is the wake-up call to put on your dubious hat. Because I'm looking at a picture of Irene Triplett, 84, the last living recipient of VA benefits connected to the Civil War. The funny thing about her is that her father, whose pension she's getting, he fought for both sides in the Civil War. The only reason he's getting a pension is because he ended up over on the Union side, but he started with the Confederates. And he was born in 1846. So someone born in 1846, his veteran service is still part of the budget of the Veterans Administration. So it should be soberly remembered in times of great emotion that a declaration of war, and this is in the Wall Street Journal's words, sets in motion expenditures that can span centuries, whether the veterans themselves were heroes, cowards, traitors, or something in between, like this guy who just hedged his bets and fought for wherever he happened to end up at the moment. This survivor, and they point out, and this is interesting, he married a woman 50 years younger than him after the war. He was much after the war. He was old, and he married this young 20-something, and it was during the Depression. And that these marriages between old, I'm talking about 80 years and 90-year-old veterans of the Civil War to young women were not that unusual, because in the Depression, these men desperately needed someone to care for them, and the women desperately needed some financial security. Amazingly, someone actually did the demographic research and found out that in these marriages of old vets and young women in the 20s and 30s, that fully 1/3 of the women were nurses. So that shows marriage as a clear economic transaction. Clear. These aren't love matches. These are, I need someone young and strong to tend to me. And for the woman, she needed, if he was going to die soon too, that would be guaranteed income of whatever pension he had as a veteran. By the way, the survivor, Irene Triplett, when asked about her parents, said, for the Wall Street Journal's benefit, I didn't care for neither one of them, to tell you the truth. I wanted to get away from both of them. I wanted to get me a house and crawl in it all by myself. By the way, her pension check that she gets monthly from the VA is $73.13. Well, that, in the Civil War, that would have been a nice piece of change, I guess. Do we have a call? Mm-hmm. Oh, hi.
Good morning, Lynn. It's Dave from Washington.
Hi, Dave.
Hey, with all the sadness and trauma in your life of the past couple of weeks, I'm very, very happy to hear that your kitty came home.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
Yeah. Hey, I want to get back to Benghazi for a second.
All right.
because I love this topic. Let's go back 30 years when
Reagan.
When the president, a Republican, just like today, the House of Representatives was controlled by the opposition party. The Senate was controlled by his own party. I'm talking about Ronald Reagan, of course.
Yep.
And Ronald Reagan had a couple of really horrible events that happened to him in 1983 and 1984. Specifically, of course, in October of 1983, in Beirut, they took a truck, they drove it right through an open gate, past a bunch of Marine guards with unloaded weapons, straight into the barracks, blew the barracks up, and killed 241 United States Marines. Okay. Now, we knew that this was going to happen because 6 months earlier, they did the exact same thing at the U.S. Embassy in Beirut, killed 63 people, 17 Americans. There was a big investigation by the House of Representatives, controlled by Tip O'Neill. But they did not go after the president. They blamed these events on the perpetrators, not on the political opponents. And even when, after the first attack against the embassy, they said, you've got to do this, you've got to do the other thing, we have to strengthen the defenses around these facilities. 6 months later, it did not happen, and we lost 241 Marines. They still didn't jump all over the president for dereliction or anything like that. And then to top it all off, 3 months later, terrorists kidnapped Bill Buckley, who was the CIA station chief in Beirut, tortured and murdered him on tape and sent the tape to the White House. And Reagan watched that tape. And again, no hearings from Congress. There was a bunch of some investigations to say, how did this happen? Who is to blame? Of course, they blamed the perpetrators. They did not blame the political opponents. Ronald Reagan walked out of all this stuff, blameless. And arguably rightly so, because he didn't kill anybody, just as Hillary Clinton didn't kill anybody in Benghazi. Obama didn't kill anybody in Benghazi. And these guys know it, but today's Republican Party is just counting on people being too stupid to care about what really happened. All they want to do is just keep the fire lit. Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi. You're not answering all the questions of Benghazi. Sure, every question has been answered about Benghazi. But your average Fox viewer, your average Rush Limbaugh viewer, listener, they don't know. They don't care. Just keep the fire aflame.
They're sure that they are correct. They really are living in another reality. I wonder if you drop, though, this list into their reality, how do they react to that? Why haven't I seen someone do that in a hearing?
They just ignore it. They don't care. They simply ignore it. If it does not fit into what they want to believe, they don't care. It is that simple. Denial is such a big part of their existence. They just don't care what the facts are. It is strictly you talk about faith-based existence.
Yeah, when facts are troublesome, you just make up your own.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. If you don't like it, then, don't believe it.
That's right. Get to work and create another reality. That's it.
So, and then one last thing. I'm a registered independent, so I can't really go out and vote today, can I?
Well, that's interesting, and that really is weird. And registration of independence is just growing by leaps and bounds, understandably, I think. And again, this state's refusal to acknowledge that. I don't see why an independent like you shouldn't be able to vote on whatever side. Ideally, you should be able to cross over and do whatever you want. But at least say, okay, I want to, at least, around here you would vote in the Democratic, ballot. Yeah. Right. So it's insanity. This is insane.
Should have open primaries.
Absolutely. Thank you, David. Okay. Bye.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm sorry about recent events. It must have been extremely trying for you and your family.
It is.
Go squeeze that kitty and pet it on the head.
Okay. Is that after I strangle it? Okay, I will.
Yeah.
I will.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, God, I hear my phone ringing. Okay. So where to go from here. I don't know if you saw this Nicholas Kristof piece in the Times yesterday, and if you didn't, the good news is the Post-Gazette. Oh, speaking of that, did you see Richard Mellon-Scaife has got terminal cancer? You know, and there was a quote in the paper from him saying, I suppose this will be, you know, some of my enemies will rejoice. You know, no. I don't wish that on anyone. And Richard Mellon-Scaife is quite a character. And he's used his substantial wealth for things that certainly I think have been wrong and wrong-headed. But he is who he is, and, you know, he stakes out some strange points, too. He is also extremely generous with, for instance, an organization like Planned Parenthood. So he's not an across-the-board kind of a conservative, but he's whatever. Anyway, it'll be interesting to see what happens to his newspaper, because that's his, totally his, and once he's gone, I don't know. But no, Mr. Scaife, not at all happy to hear that. Really, not. Okay, so the Post-Gazette did reprint this Kristof piece, and he picks up on the fact, and I think we actually talked about this, that, you know, the American middle class is no longer, I mean, you can do the numbers, is no longer the richest middle class in the world. The Canadian middle class is, and the European middle class is within seconds going to overtake us as well. And Kristof did a piece on that, and I'll just share a little of it with you because it's, you know, it's some serious food for thought here, guys. The discrepancy, he thinks, between the Canadians and us is really even greater than just how much income each class is getting, each middle class. He says because the Canadians receive essentially free health care. Meanwhile, American workers, on average, work 4.6% more hours than a Canadian worker. But get this, we work 21% more than a French worker and get... Now you think, oh yeah, the French, but they don't do much. Okay, but then let's go to the Germans, who are considered a very industrious folk, right? The average American worker works what Kristof calls an astonishing 28% more, according to available data, than a German worker. And we ain't getting paid, guys. We're not getting paid anymore, which is why the middle class is disappearing. He goes on to point out also Canadians and Europeans on average live longer. Their children are less likely to die than American children. American women are twice as likely to die in pregnancy or childbirth. We're, you know, hello? Can we wake up? And in terms of economic mobility, forget it. The American dream is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's starting to be a dream in other countries. There's much more social mobility in other nations than in ours. Because the studies are out now, we can see it. A child born in the bottom 20% here is much less likely to be able to get themselves up the rungs, up to the top, than a child in Canada or in Europe. A Danish child is twice as likely to rise as an American child. And here's Kristof's take-home point, when our futures are determined to a significant extent by our birth, then we have reverted to a kind of feudal state, the kind of state that our ancestors fled for opportunity. Nobel-winning economist Joseph Stiglitz says equality of opportunity, the American dream, is now a myth. America has become the advanced country not only with the highest level of inequality, but one of those with the least equality of opportunity. And when you look at what's going on, again, you end up with that top 1% now owns more than all the assets held by the entire 90%, bottom 90%. The 6 Walmart heirs are worth as much as the bottom 41% of American households. 6 people. And he points out that something like funding federal pre-K for all, which is something the Obama administration wants to do, the amount of money that would take to make sure that every American child got preschool, that would cost no more than a single month's earnings for those 6 Walmart people. And yet, guess what? The Congress can't find the money. They always find money to build prisons. We got a big mess on our hand. You know what? And today, some piddling percentage of Americans are going to go vote, or Pennsylvanians, whoever's got it. This is a real mess, guys. Not voting is part of what creates the mess. Part of it. So do your part and vote, okay? All righty, coming up tomorrow, Jared Day will be here, Professor Day, and he's always full of, I think, some pretty interesting information. I will look forward to it. Hope you do as well. Have a good one.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper, Steel City Media, and its advertisers.